Mark Giordano staying home on a team-friendly extension. The Bolts sweeping the Cats in the second round of the playoffs. And Nazem Kadri back in the news cycle and is the focal point in the playoff series once again. We'll explain all that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so make sure that you subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us on video on YouTube. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Smash that like button, hit subscribe. All that good stuff would be greatly appreciated. Dave, we got a busy show. We had some breaking news over this long weekend. Mark Giordano sticking around town for a couple more years. But before we get into that, Dave, how was your long weekend, bud? Birthday weekend. It was your birthday weekend.
Birthday weekend. So got the boosters from the family. Got some nice. I got 2 different cakes this weekend. I'm not gonna lie. That's a pretty sweet deal.
Why did that happen? How did you get 2 different cakes?
Well, okay, so the first one was a planned one with my family, obviously getting a nice DQ ice cream cake. I'm a big ice cream cake fan. And then a good buddy of ours, Jose, went to school together.
Yeah, shout out Jose.
Showed up at my house with a Cheesecake Factory chocolate mousse cake, and I'm just like, damn, what did I do to get 2 cakes on my birthday? So I got to enjoy a nice, sweet birthday. Had to work off a couple of those cakes with a little more work this weekend, but not going to complain about the end result for sure.
No, you weren't the only one who was hard at work. Your work taking down a couple of cakes wasn't as busy as the work that Kyle Dubas got up to this weekend, as he and Mark Giordano able to hammer out a pretty tidy 2-year extension to stick around with the Maple Leafs. It's 2 years, $800,000 per, so in total $1.6 million for Mark Giordano. Man, I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting this. Like, I knew he wanted to return. He made that pretty clear in his year-end presser, his availability, and he said, we'll see what happens. It's up to my agent and Kyle Dubas. So he wanted to return, but it was going to be, is what it is. I figured, okay, if he is going to come back, it probably would be on a rather cheap deal. I'm thinking, million and a half. I think I'd be happy with that. And then all of a sudden I see, the Maple Leafs tweet this away, or I think, Darren Dreger, I think, said there's a deal in place, and then I think Frank Saravalli came through with the details. 2 years, $800,000. I was like, what? What was your first initial reaction to that price?
Yeah, I know the 800,000. I'm just like, did they mistakenly put Mark Giordano's name in front of Jason Spezza? Like that's the deal we have come to. You know what? The funny thing is we come to expect similar deals to this. But I didn't expect Mark Giordano to take a deal like this. Like, I was reading, I think the Toronto Star put out an article and saying, this is a guy that could get $3 million on the open market. And I'm just like, potentially, yes. But the Leafs were not going to be paying $3 million for a Mark Giordano. There's just no way. And yeah, it felt like they had the leg up because he really wanted to stay. And I think the other part that I found interesting was that apparently the agreement was for $1 million, and then Giordano actually said, "We can shave a couple $100,000 off on that one."
Isn't that beautiful? Ain't that something? Someone willing to take a discount, and I know it's the old Toronto Greybeards club that seem to be the only guys taking discounts these days. Whether it's Simmons, Spezza, now you can throw Giordano into the mix here. I mean, when it's nice to see, and hopefully this is something that because they're, maybe the younger guys, not necessarily, the ones who are already paid, but, someone like Liljegren, someone like Sandin, who do still need those contracts, or maybe an Andre Kasha, Pierre Engvall, guys who are coming up for renewal this year. And they're like, look, Mark Giordano came out and said publicly he believes that this team can get it done. That's why he's at a point where he's never won a Stanley Cup. He wants to be with a team that can win a Stanley Cup. He feels like the Maple Leafs are that team, but he also understands the cap crunch that they're in. Therefore, that extra 200 grand that he himself took off of the top. Like Dubas is like, what, 2 years, 1 million, let's sign. He's like, no, 800,000. Put that 200 towards something else, and let's try and just get this done. Okay, sure. I'm hoping that maybe now we could see Rasmus Sandin take a bit of a, not a pay cut, but he's somebody who maybe won't stick it to Dubas to get full market value, or Liljegren, or Engvall, or Kasha, any of these guys. Perhaps they come in a little bit lower than what we initially thought they would come at. And it's just because they're seeing these other guys do these discounts. Now I get it. Gio's made tons of money over his career. He can do this. It's not going to hurt him. But I wonder if, he's setting a good precedent here. Here's one of the quotes that we had from Mark Giordano today. He said, I'm definitely blessed to have had the career I've had so far and be in a position financially where I'm in a good spot. So I wasn't worried about the hard negotiating or anything like that. At the end of the day, I want to be here. I love the team, and I want to do what I can to help this team move forward and win. And I'll leave it at that, and all the other stuff. It is what it is, and I made decisions for different reasons. So that was his response to taking the pay cut. And I guess, thanks for being selfless, Gio. And he also went on to say that like a 2-year deal was something he wanted specifically, that he was happy to get because it feels like he can become more of a leader on this club, knowing that he's going to be here for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, no, I think this is what, and people have to realize that, yeah, Giordano's making a sacrifice, but he's also getting a guaranteed 2-year deal with this, right?
Right.
So it's not like he may, he's not, betting on himself for a 1 year, like kind of like how Spezza did, where Spezza was taking year after year, and almost like you're taking a bigger gamble because that's not a full commitment from the team, right? So, I think it speaks to the Leafs finally kind of taking advantage, once again, taking advantage of a player, not taking advantage of a player, but taking advantage of the fact that a player wants to stay here. And yeah, I'm just hoping it also sets the right precedent for the rest of the roster. The guys that either want to leave and make their money, or stay and try to build off of and try to finally come up with the answer to what has been such a disappointing few years because of the lack of ability to move past the first round.
Right. But the next question I guess we have for Giordano is what are your expectations of him? I think he came in and he totally gave me like exactly what I wanted him to do with his time here in Toronto this year after the deadline. He did exactly what I wanted to do. He may have even exceeded expectations a little bit in the way that he elevated a guy like Timothy Liljegren and elevated, Justin Hall when they played together at times. But what are your expectations for him? Because he's going to be 39 this season when the year starts, turns 39 on October 3rd. You still expect for this guy to be an 82 game player at this point, or is he somebody who maybe you filter in and out, give him the odd night off, or you still have decently high expectations that he's a daily, third pair type of guy who has some tread left on the tires?
Yeah, I really did ponder this thought, and he played 75 games this past season. So it's not like he's on a decline in terms of being able to play a heavy workload. But you also have to think of the age. You also have to think of the miles on him. If he doesn't play 82 games, it's not a disappointment considering what they're paying him. I think it almost comes with the expectation that you don't have to play an 82 game season because as we've come to expect to learn, the regular season doesn't mean as much if you can't get it done in the playoffs. And I'd rather not overwork a Mark Giordano and make sure that he is primed and ready to go for the playoffs. So yeah, I don't think we need to see 82 games from him. how much he plays, that depends on how the Leafs can, can make the workload kind of situate properly with the rest of the lineup.
So really quickly, I'll go over some of the some of the numbers, I guess, for Mark Giordano this season, and he had a he had a decent year, I guess. It wasn't the greatest season that he's ever had, but I'm just looking at the 5-on-5 numbers right now, and with Toronto, since the trade coming over to Toronto, that is. He had 7 points at 5-on-5, and probably actually I can quickly see what the full numbers are, I suppose, for right now. But at 5-on-5, ended up with that many points, and then this year with Toronto, so 12 points in the 20 games since coming over to Toronto, which is pretty darn good. 12 points through 20 games for a third pair defenseman. That's not too shabby. And then you take a look at the advanced numbers a little bit. Had a Corsi of 53%. Had an expected goals of 60%, a expected scoring chances of 58%. So the guy drove offense each and every time he was out there. And this is somebody who played on the PK, played on the power, played all positions really. Like he could kill penalties, played second unit power play minutes, and obviously at 5-on-5. So he did a whole lot for this club. I'll be curious to see how his role changes as he gets a little bit older. His minutes maybe get scaled back a little bit. But I mean, you take a look at 39 years old, why can't he continue just to be a third pair guy who can play 18 minutes a night and very successfully? We saw that out of Zdeno Chara for a very long time. So I think that Gio is a guy who he didn't show, that he was falling off drastically this season. So hopefully over the course of a summer, he can continue to build or at least not fall off too much. All right, before we move on and we talk a little bit about Florida getting swept and also, what's going on with Nazem Kadri right now. Uh, what do you think that this blue line looks like right now? Because by signing Mark Giordano, this now gives the team there's 5 guys who they have signed under contract at this very moment, or well, 4. Yeah. So they'll have Morgan Riley, Jake Muzzin, TJ Brody, Justin Hall, and now, Mark Giordano makes it 5 guys who they have under contract right now. And then they still got to re-sign Rasmus Sandin and Timothy Liljegren. My question to you, Dave, by bringing in Gio, do you see one of those other players, left shot defenseman, getting dealt this summer as part of a package to either bring in a top 4 right shot guy or a top 6, goal scoring power forward winger type of player? Do you think we see that? Because now we've got, if they sign both Liljegren and Sandin, now they've got 7 NHL caliber defensemen who are everyday NHLers. And I'm not so sure that this is a team that necessarily can afford to have all of that, or at least they can, but you don't want to have a guy like Sandin or Liljegren sitting on the outside looking in. Perhaps maybe Justin Hall could get dealt, but now you're a little short on right-hand shooting guys. I wonder what this does, or if we see any player movement if you're bringing in Giordano, especially and more specifically to left shot defensemen.
Yeah, I've been pondering this thing because really I think it comes down to you're either moving Justin Hall, which that's a tough one because you got to be able to replace him, as you said, in the lineup, which some people say won't be difficult, but you have to think about the position and what he brings. He didn't look terrible with Giordano. Maybe he's the guy that's the pairing you go with there. I think it comes down to Sandin or Muzzin. That's where I think it goes because there is that surplus of left shot D. You have to think about the fact that Sandin can't go down to the Marlins, so he has to be in the NHL next season. And you've got Sandin and Liljegren. Those are 2 players that are kind of eerily similar. I'd rather have Liljegren because he is that right shot and he has shown improvement in being able to play in the NA. I mean, obviously Sandin.
Sandin, I mean, before the injury, this guy was carving out himself to be an everyday NHLer.
Yeah, like that's the tough part. It's just where's this, like, there is a surplus, but you have to be very careful on where, if you're going to make a subtraction, the equation has to fit. I don't know if it fits like easily when you're trying to move a blue line, because a guy on the blue line, because other teams know that there's a surplus, and they're not going to be like, oh, we're going to make this easy and give them everything the Leafs want, right? So it all depends on where they see Giordano fit in the lineup, because that, if he's on the third pairing, then you're either saying, is Sandin a second pairing defenseman? That's a tough one to ask on him. Or so if you're not, if you're going to get rid of Sandin, is Muzzin, are you ready to bank on Muzzin? Did he do enough in the playoffs to show that he could stick around for the rest of his contract and live up to his contract?
Yeah, I think if you can find a partner, because Muzzin, I think I would feel comfortable with Muzzin if his partner was TJ Brody. I
Yeah.
would not if it was Justin Hall, right? So it
That
depends who his partner is going to be. So if you're thinking Brody, Brody and Muzzin as your second pair, Geo and Hall or Liljegren, I guess, as your third pair, all of a sudden it's like, okay, so you're going to put Sandin up on your top pair on the right side alongside Morgan Riley? Maybe not. Maybe you package together Rasmus Sandin, a young up and coming defenseman who could be a top four guy at some point, or you package up, a Justin Hall, or maybe it is a Timothy Liljegren, and you have Hall play on that third pair. But you package up one of these two young defensemen and you use it to go out and get yourself a partner for Morgan Riley, or you use those defensemen, you get yourself a top six, gritty goal scoring winger like people have been talking about. They want to add a little tenacity to that top six. Maybe you can use that as a package to go and get it. Like, is Sandin plus maybe that base to go and get a JT Miller, as opposed to maybe having to move out a William Nylander? Like, maybe you can get a little bit more creative with picks and prospects to make a big trade. Whether it's, to go and get, Miller, or maybe it's a Scott Lawton, or it's somebody else. I don't know. But maybe that's a situation or scenario that you could go in. And then you brought up Jake Muzzin. The only way you're moving that guy is if you believe that one of either Sandin or Giordano could play top 4 minutes. And I don't know if I'd be willing to bank on that going into next year.
that's tough to ask,
Yeah.
especially if Giordano's he only played third pairing minutes. He didn't move up to the top four. Sandin didn't play top four either. So it's like you're asking them to do something that they haven't done. Sure, maybe that has to come with the sacrifice of you have to make moves elsewhere. I'm just, that might be too tough of a, or maybe they're reimagining the defense in a different way where it's like a Brody Liljegren pairing. I don't know. It just seems like it's a really tough. This is probably the toughest decision I think Kyle Dubas is going to have to make, is what happens with this blue line. Even though he has to make moves in a lot of other areas, the blue line it was really good this season, in my opinion. You don't want to see it take a step back.
Yeah, that's totally true. You do not want to see it take a step back, and I think that's why you go out and you bring back, Mark Giordano, because he did help elevate whoever was playing with him on that third pair. And he's just a great locker room guy, Toronto guy. He's part of the Toronto Graybeard group, who's willing to take that discount to try and bring a Stanley Cup to the city of Toronto. And I think obviously we're hoping that eventually that pays off. Whether it's next year, the year after, at some point. Hopefully it pays off for these guys, Spezza included, Simmer, and obviously now you can add Mark Giordano to the mix of that group. All right. I'm sure we'll have tons of conversations about what to do with the defensemen, potentially some free agents or some trade targets, and we could kind of play armchair GM, later on in the off season. But at the end of the day, Mark Giordano back in Toronto next year. 2-year deal, paying him $800,000 cap hit over the next 2 seasons, so $1.6 million in total. So Gio sticking around, and he'll be a Maple Leaf going forward. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, Let's get into this Tampa, Florida series, which is now over, David. It's over. A 4-game sweep by the Tampa Bay Lightning on the fraudulent Panthers. We'll get into that. We'll get into Nazem Kadri and what's going on in his situation. And we'll do that all when we get back. But first, Dave, I want to tell the good folks about Built Bar.
Yep, we've already seen Built Bar take their game to the next level when they brought out the birthday cake puffs. Well, they're doing it again, folks. They're bringing out the brownie batter. Yep, imagine taking a scoop of that brownie spatula, but add some protein to it. Well, you're in luck because Built has a new creation. This one is better than ever. The brownie batter puff. Yep, you heard me right. The puff takes protein bars to a whole new level, and they're available right now at built.com. If you haven't heard of the Built Puffs, I'm not sure what you're waiting for because Puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow that are covered in 100% real chocolate. With 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 7 grams of sugar, brownie batter puffs are the perfect pick me up any day. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of healthy benefits. Brownie batter puffs will have you completely forgetting that you're eating a protein bar. No need to pinch yourself. This is real life, folks. Go to built.com to get brownie batter puffs now and use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. So that's promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with me. We're your hosts here at Locked On Leafs, a daily Maple Leaf centric podcast. And just because the Leafs decided to bow out in round one, we're sticking around through the entire playoffs. New episodes coming at you Monday through Friday, and then we'll even be giving you some content throughout the offseason as well. Locked On Leafs, a 365-day year-round podcast. So make sure that you are subscribed wherever you get your audio form and also up on YouTube. You can watch this on video. Go ahead, leave a like and leave a comment about what do we want today's kind of question to be. How about this, Dave? How about this? Are you more or less angry about the round one exit, knowing what just happened in the Tampa Bay and Florida series? Dave, the fraudulent Panthers go out and get dummied. They just get swept by the Tampa Bay Lightning without Braden Point, I might add, one of the better players on that squad. 4 straight games. The President's Trophy winners are out. The President's Trophy curse is still well alive. And the Tampa Bay Lightning are moving on to the Eastern Conference Final for a 3rd straight year. Dave, what are your thoughts on kind of what we just saw, the beatdown that Tampa laid on Florida?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're a Leafs fan, look, nothing is going to make you feel better about losing that first round series. If you're going to take any comfort with the Panthers looking absolutely terrible against Lightning, that's fine. I'm of the belief that the Leafs screwed themselves. They didn't get the job done, and Tampa. What it was just Tampa taking their playoff experience and telling the Panthers, "You've never done it before, so we're just gonna take it all to you." And I still think the main reason why they won this series is the guy in goal, Andre Vasilevsky. You get goaltending like that, it'd be almost a shame if you didn't get the sweep because that goaltending performance in that second round was unbelievable.
Do you want to pull up that statistic about
Yes.
Andre Vasilevsky in his 7-game series clinching games, his last 7 series clinching games? Look at this. This is insane. He's got a .995 save percentage, a 0.14 goals against, and 6 shutouts in 7 games. He's allowed 1 goal in 7 series clinching games. The Maple Leafs are the team that scored that 1 goal, I might add, by the way. But that's it. They've got 1 goal allowed in 7 series clinching games dating back to winning their first Stanley Cup title a couple of years ago. I mean, Andre Vasilevsky, this guy, I was having this discussion on the Locked On National show, and this discussion was kind of being had throughout the night. I mean, where does Andre Vasilevsky, has he already cemented himself on the Mount Rushmore of goaltenders with what this guy's been able to do the last few seasons when it matters most in the postseason? Like, those numbers are just unbelievable. 0.14 goals against through 7 series clinching games. You can't be more clutch than that. Cannot
No,
be more clutch than that.
no, you can't. He is like I thought he was a top 10 goaltender of all time when I saw his performances in the last two times he's won a Stanley Cup. And then what does he do? He's putting Tampa in the best position to get a 3-peat. Like goaltending like this, you don't see it every day. There's a reason why Tampa gave him all that money. It's because they need Andre Vasilevsky. Like I don't know where this Tampa team would be without him because you don't get to where you are without your goaltender. Like I've never seen stats like this before. Not
Right.
even in the Patrick Waugh, Dominic Hasek, who I was always of the belief that Dominic Hasek was the most dominant goaltender because he just flat out could just steal games out like
He
but
found every single way possible to stop a
yeah.
puck.
He did whatever he had to. He threw himself wherever he needed to.
Quite literally, like, would just throw his
Yeah.
body and make the most acrobatic stops.
Vasilevsky, his size, the way he uses his size and the flexibility he has, like it's just not fair.
No, like, the thing is, he's 6'5", but can also make, like, the behind the back saves. He can also make the scorpion kick type of save. He also stacks the pads and does a full windmill as if he's Chris Osgood. Like, the dude's unbelievable what he's able to do. And I mean, I think he's got to be in the conversation, man, for definitely up in the top 5 for greatest goaltenders of all time. I mean, I've as much as we love Carey Price in this country, I don't know if we've ever seen a dominant stretch like what Vasilevsky has done the last few seasons out of Carey Price. I mean, the year that he won gold and he unfortunately got hurt, like he was a terrific terrific goaltender, won the MVP and everything, but ultimately wasn't able to really get it done when it mattered most and wasn't like it didn't get 6 shutouts in 7 series clinching games. Like that's just unbelievable. Now, credit to Tampa as a whole, right? Like the whole squad, obviously. The team as a whole limited the Florida Panthers to 3 goals through the series. The Florida Panthers were the number 1 offense in the NHL in the regular season. The number 1 offense. They limited them to 3 goals the entire series. And for the first time all year, the Florida Panthers were shut out in a game, and it happened to be in game 4 tonight.
Yeah, when I look at what the Leafs were able to do in their series and what the Panthers couldn't do, like it's really
Sure.
mind-boggling because
Yeah.
Tampa had this was the first time Tampa got shut out all season.
Florida.
Sorry, yeah, first time Florida has gone shut out all season. I'm just like I couldn't like I had to I went through the game logs actually. And I'm like, wow, that's actually that happened.
Accurate.
Like it just goes to show that and I think somebody pointed out that the same thing happened with Montreal last year where they beat the Leafs in 7 and then they swept the Jets in the second round. Um I just think once you get out of a battle tested series like that, and look, Washington kind of exposed Florida a little bit too. I think Florida was a vulnerable team. I just didn't think that they were gonna. I thought this was gonna be like the offensive showcase for both teams,
Dude,
and I think
I had
took
Tampa winning the series, right? I had Tampa winning the series, but I figured it'd be 6 games or so. I think Tampa in 6 is where I took them.
Mhm.
But here's why, and you say that they showed they have vulnerabilities, and it's correct, and it's a lot of the same things that they got away with in the regular season. The Florida Panthers had 1 power play goal the entire playoffs. Came in game 3. They didn't score a single power play goal against Washington and somehow still won that series, right? They kind of snuck away with it. And then they got one in the series against Tampa Bay. So special teams not being there, that's a problem. That's a problem. And then also they had to come back in 3 of the 4 victories against Washington. They came from behind to win those games, twice in overtime. So they just snuck past the Washington Capitals, right? And we know that they have the reputation of being the comeback cats. I mean, the Leafs were up what 5-1 or 6-2 on them at one point in the season, and they came back and they tied the game and ended up winning like that. That they had the reputation as the comeback cats, but against that squad, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the second they get out to an early lead, you're not coming back on them, and that's exactly what happened. They couldn't claw out of the hole that they had dug themselves in whenever they allowed Tampa to score the first goal of the game. They didn't switch a lead. They had the lead in, I think it was, they scored the first goal of the series and they had a 1-0 lead, but they never had a lead for the rest of the series. You're not going to win against Tampa that way. You're just not going to win against Tampa.
And
it's not going to happen.
And I think what the Leafs learned is and I saw in that first series was once Tampa gets a lead, good luck.
They shut it down. Now they did come back. Like the Leafs did come back and score, in
game
games
5 and 6. Those were the 2 games where
Right.
they show that they can overcome a deficit.
Right.
But then Tampa in game 6, they're just like, okay, we're still the defending champs. We can even take the lead back, or well, in this case, tie the game and then win it at overtime.
Right.
But yeah, no, this was Tampa is showing. I hate to say this, sounds so cliche, but they're showing that they know what it takes to win.
Yeah, show them why they're the champs. Before we move on, I want to talk about the President's Trophy curse.
Yeah.
And I don't want the Maple Leafs to win the President's Trophy next year, and this is why. Because this is now the 4th straight year that the President's Trophy winner had been eliminated after losing 4 straight games. So back in 2019, Tampa wins it. For those on YouTube, you can see what we're looking at here, the tweet. In 2019, Tampa Bay, that unbelievable season that they had, they dropped 4 straight, swept by the Columbus Blue Jackets. The following year in Boston, in the second round, they won game 1, but then lost 4 straight to the Tampa Bay Lightning in the second round. 2021, last year, the Colorado Avalanche, they won the first 2 games going up 2-0, and then lost 4 straight to the Vegas Golden Knights. And this year, the Florida Panthers won themselves the President's Trophy. Congratulations on your regular season award. But guess what happened? They dropped 4 straight in the second round and got eliminated by the Tampa Bay Lightning. The President's Trophy curse, ladies and gentlemen, has some merit. It's got some merit. And maybe the Maple Leafs don't want to win that award next season because it seems to be cursed. And the Leafs already have enough curses when it comes to the playoffs. I don't think they need that one as well. All right, Dave, why don't we take a quick break, one more, and then when we get back, Nazem Kadri. Man, this guy can never stay out of the headlines in the playoffs, but this time it's not really his fault, and he's not the bad guy here when it comes to this situation. Also add one hell of a game 4 for the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get into that and more on the other side. Here, you're listening to Locked On Leafs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. With me, Dave Morassutti. We're your hosts here at Locked On Leafs. Dave, the Maple Leafs are no longer in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But there are a few former Leafs that I've been keeping an eye on, and one Nazem Kadri. Nazem the Dream is somebody obviously out in Colorado we're keeping an eye on to see how the Avs do, how he does. And he couldn't possibly do it again, is what we all are wondering. All right, couple straight years here where he's, caught someone and he's been suspended for some hits, and it happened again last year. And we're thinking this couldn't possibly happen again. Now he didn't get suspended for running into Jordan Binnington in game. Was it game 3? Yeah, in game 3, didn't get suspended, and it wasn't intentional, and there was no it wasn't a suspension worthy play. But of course, it put him back into the spotlight here in the playoffs. Do you want to get into exactly the situation that's going on with Nazem Kadri, and then we can, after that, go into what we saw happen in Game 4?
Yeah, no, just an unfortunate situation for Kadri because I'm I'm of the belief that yeah, it wasn't a great hit. Kadri, I didn't like his explanation and saying that he got pushed into Bennington when he was actually behind the Avalanche player that was going to the net, so didn't really make sense there. Um, I don't think he meant to hurt Bennington.
No, I don't think so
Like, I
either.
think people need like that. That was not what was happening there. I just think, you know, Kadri is a guy that, love him or hate him, he's gonna go all out in trying to score. And the unfortunate part here isn't what happened in the game, but what happened after the fact, and that they had to involve the police because of remarks and threats being sent Kadri's way. Like, are we just at a point now where like, Kadri just has to live with this and accept this? Like, sure, what he did, if you're a Blues fan, sucks because you lost a goaltender that helped you make this series competitive, and
Mhm.
then it kind of changed the complexion of the series. I get that, but there's just no excuse for that. It is a very unfortunate situation. I had to call police to ensure there was extra security for the game tonight, which are we is that where we have to get to? Like, it's a hockey hit, Pete, guys. It does not need to get to this point. And unfortunately it did. It got to this point. And I will give Kadri a lot of credit because he didn't let it phase him. We have seen it in the past where he has allowed emotions to get the better of him. In this game, there were in game 4, there was some of that, but he was able to channel it in the right way, I think.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to the game in a second. I just want to read a tweet here from Akeem Aliu. He's good friends with Nazem Kadri through that whole situation, and he texted them apparently, and Kadri reached out to him, and Aliu tweeted this. He said, "Talk to Kadri about the inadvertent collision with Bennington. Nas has been subject to so many racist attacks and threats since last night that police had to be brought in. Racist attacks like this have no place in hockey. It should be investigated and reported on." And like you said, Dave, the Avalanche were, they notified the police right away, and they ended up getting more security down at the game that took place Game 4 in St. Louis, obviously. And as of now, he's getting threats, which is not okay, but it doesn't look like there was any physical harm that was done to Nazem Kadri. But it's disgusting and despicable. I mean, it's a game at the end of the day. And if you watch the hit, it doesn't look like he necessarily tried to hurt the guy, like you had alluded to. And they're making him out to be a villain once again because of his previous history. And yeah, I guess previous history speaks for itself, but this isn't the same. And even still, I absolutely just feel so badly for Nazem Kadri. He's gonna have to carry that baggage with him for the rest of his life, and it's just absolutely brutal. And then you fast forward to tonight's game or last night's game, I guess, if you're listening to this Tuesday. First and foremost, Avalanche, they won the game, go up 3-1, 5-3 win. Nazem Kadri, funny enough, hat trick performance stemming off of everything that had happened in game 3. So clearly, he's unfazed by everything that's going on off the ice, not allowing it to affect his on ice performance. In fact, maybe fueling him at this point in the playoffs, at this point in this game. But here's what I thought was kind of disgusting that was happening. The Blues really trying to get their retribution here in game 4. I didn't like it, not one bit. Some of the things that we saw, clear targeting of Nazem Kadri, going after him in scrums, some late hits. And then the one that I thought was really greasy. Do we have visuals of that for those who are watching it on YouTube? This is the one that I thought was the greasiest of them all. David Perron, who's having a hell of a playoffs. He's a great player as a whole. Just a stupid, gutless move. So this happened after Nazem Kadri, play the video here. Nazem Kadri scores his second goal of the game, and there he goes. And then if you could see this on the replay, he goes to celebrate, and David Perron, for whatever reason, thought it'd be a good idea to try and chicken wing clip Nazem Kadri in the jaw.
Right. Yeah. See,
Right there. Tries to get him in the jaw. You could see him right up there. He's got the chicken wing. Clearly was going after him during the celebration. And that's just despicable and disgusting to me. That is intent to injure. That is targeting the head. That to me has all the makings of what should be a suspendable play. I know he didn't actually make contact, and the only reason why he didn't is because Kadri, I guess, it looks like he saw it and moved last second, kind of dodged it. Luckily, because that could have been some damage right there. But to me, that's a suspendable play, Dave. I don't know where you sit on that.
Well, I think the fact it's getting so much attention, I think the NHL is more inclined to look at it now. No, I thought it was despicable play. Yeah, because intent. There's intent. It's a play where it's not even a hockey play. The goal scored, play is suspended. Those are the types of plays that the NHL cannot tolerate. Like
No,
I kind of slowed it down. I kind of froze the frame here for those who are listening on the audio form. And like Perron is trying to make it look nonchalant, which, buddy, come on. Like, we know exactly what you're doing because we saw what happened earlier in the game where you and Bushnevich took your licks on Kadri. Fortunately for Colorado, they were able to pot the goals on the 5-on-3. But for the St. Louis Blues, they went into this game saying, we're not going to let this phase us. We're not going to take retribution. And, gee, one in 1 year, out the other, as they say. Clearly.
yeah, and yeah, so that's just it's just despicable to see that happen. So I feel for Naz, obviously former Maple Leaf, but he's having an unbelievable year. He's trying his best to not have controversy throughout this playoff stretch, and unfortunately, controversy seems to follow this guy wherever he goes. And now, even into this game, now everyone's going to be talking about the elbow that he dodged. But should there be a suspension on David Perron? I think so. We'll see what ends up happening there. But at the end of the day, the Avs now up 3-1. Kadri, like I said, ended up with a hat trick in this game. So he got the last laugh, and now they're going back to Colorado with a chance to end this thing in 5 games, and Kadri can go through to the conference final for the first time in his career. And so we'll see what ends up happening there. But that's certainly a story that we're going to be tracking to see what happens with David Perron. Maybe see if there's any type of punishment that potentially could come here. All right, Dave, I think that'll do it for us here today on the pod. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show at Locked On Leafs. Leave a comment on YouTube as well. You can subscribe there. And also leave a review on iTunes if you could. That would be fantastic as well. A rating and review goes a long way to helping us out here. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow morning, folks. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.